In this series called Sasquatch Shorties, I'm going to be looking at individual encounters, teaching experiences, and experiences with the Sasquatch people. Giving a brief synopsis of what occurred, and then some thoughts on, what I feel about it. Now, when I speak about the Sasquatch people, and I have been told telepathically and in many, many ways, through stick writing, through mind speak, as I said, telepathy, more than a handful of ways that I represent these people everywhere I go. Now, I don't associate that with ego. It's not something that, hey, look at me. But what it is it's an absolute honor. It's a responsibility, and it's a trust between myself and them. And for me to relate a story in any fashion that is not the absolute truth and does not exclude anything on the notion that I may not be believed, I may have a reputation to uphold. I'm laughing. That kind of stuff, I don't care really who believes me. It doesn't matter to me at all. What I do care is that people who do consider it, if it helps them on their journey or opens some doors of understanding to them, that's what I care about. I really don't care who believes me. It's just the way it is, because, I speak the truth as I see it, and I'm not going to water it down. Now, these truths are not just fanciful ideas that I came up with a notion. These are the result of downloads, intense education, and all the things I talk about have been experienced many, many times. Different incidents, but the same experience. Things like lost time, things like mind speak, things like, being able to shapeshift. The things that people call woo. I don't jump to conclusions on these. These are the result of an intense education, like I said. And like I said, it's my responsibility and my honor to present these stories in a true forthright fashion. I'm not going to water it down. I'm not going to hold anything out because I think, like I said, maybe it's best I don't say this. I don't want to look ridiculous, or I don't want people to think, or dismiss it out of hand because of the truths that are being told to me. I have to lay it out there as it is. And so I do. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about today is called mechanical cats. One day, Randy Brisson and I were on a hike, and we were way, way, way deep in the mountains. And we were walking up a winding serpentine-like trail up a mountain slope, and had been feeling the energy and the watchful eyes of the Sasquatch people the entire time. Now, at one point, I remember getting a really distinct third eye sensation. And early on in my journey with the Sasquatch, and it's always evolving, things just seem to evolve and change, and they just progress. So I feel them in a different fashion now. It's more like an instant energy nudge or something at this point, often. But in those days, when the Sasquatch people were around, I would get a tingly sensation in my third eye region that was very unique, very different than anything I had experienced to that point, when it initially started and continued for some years. And so when I got this third eye sensation, I knew that the Sasquatch were around. That is what occurred on this particular day. I got this third eye sensation. I knew they were around, and suddenly a little rock flew out on the trail right before my feet. A simple, hello, we're here. And was so often the case, or almost in every case, when I got this third eye sensation, something inevitably would happen. They would make their presence known, introduce themselves in some way, toss a little rock, like, in this example, or in some way they would let themselves be known. Perhaps it was even a sighting. But it inevitably led to something related to them. And the third eye feeling was the precursor of that. So I got this third eye feeling, the little rock came out, which to me is, I were here, it's a greeting. This has happened dozens and dozens of times with me. And it always felt like a greeting, like I were here, just like letting me know they were there. So the rock flew out on the path. Shortly after that, Randy and I were talking, and he was facing me, and I was facing the opposite way, looking at him. All of a sudden, he looked up the slope and he said, "Oh, there's one of them right now," and it was walking across the slope on top of the, I don't know, on top of a ledge or a hill or something, perhaps 50 yards up. Now, at this particular point in my journey, I hadn't actually seen one of my friends. This was only a couple of years in, and it, I guess I just wasn't ready, although my lessons were intense. Everything in due time. So I hadn't seen one, and of course, when this occurred, Randy was looking right up at him, and I was looking the other way. By the time I turned around, the individual was gone. Interestingly enough, when I did see RE for the first time, and I've had actually many sightings since then, I realized that the sighting was just more or less just a cherry on top, because it was cool, it was amazing, it was spiritual, it was supernatural, it was unbelievably intense. And yet I realized that all the lessons I had learned leading up to that point were far more important than that moment. It was literally just a cherry on top. I already knew they existed without question at that point. And seeing one didn't change anything, but it was very cool. In retrospect, I'm not sure if when RE appeared in my room out of a cloud of smoke, that might have been prior to that, actually. And it was a sighting, but, of a different type, kind of. It was like he transferred his energy, his thought, to me, to my room, and appeared there. So it was a sighting, but it wasn't like I saw them wandering around or walking in the woods or that type of typical sighting. But in any event, on this particular day with Randy, I had not actually had a physical sighting. And so I was, moderately disappointed, but, I realized how it worked. The same thing happened with myself and some of my friends. When I introduced them to the Sasquatch people, I would have sightings and they would not, or they would see something totally different even, like a small dog. That's another story. But when it's time, it's time. So on this particular day, it ended with what I call the mechanical cat incident. And it was very bizarre. So Randy and I, after he had the sighting and we had those experiences and we were feeling them all around us energetically, we were walking back and we were almost all the way back to my vehicle, when all of a sudden, Randy and I both stopped dead on our tracks. And for some reason, we looked straight up to the sky and raised our hands above our heads as if we were trying to ward off something that was going to fall from the trees above or the sky above upon us. And we were just walking under a tree, so I remember thinking that something was going to fall from the tree on us. The interesting thing is that Randy and I both did this at the exact same time. Stopped dead in our tracks, looked up, put our hands above our head to ward off something unseen falling from the skies. And then we heard what I can only describe as a mechanical cat sound. And I've heard mechanical, weird kind of noises similar to this before, but this one was different and unique unto itself. And what it sounded like was almost like, except like a screeching cat, but with some kind of metallic or mechanical aspect to it. It was hard to explain. But the interesting thing about this is, and this speaks to their lesson of time, speaks clearly to their lesson of time. Because the Sasquatch people say there is only the now, only the present. There is no past and there is no future. And they can access everything in the now. They've shown me that countless times. With many examples. And talk about that later and have talked about that. But the interesting thing is that Randy and I both reacted by putting our hands above our head to ward something off before we even heard the sound. I can't even remember feeling an energy or a reason why we did that. We just did it. We just did it. I don't remember sensing something coming on and putting my hands over my head. Randy doesn't. We just simply did it in unison at the exact same time. The mechanical cat. And to me, the Sasquatch people have taught me many, many times with many, many lessons over many, many years that time is not linear for them. Everything is in the present moment. The past and the future can be accessed in the present moment. And I think that this was a perfect example of that they were showing us. Because we had insight into something that was going to happen in the future, some seconds ahead of the fact, if you understand what I mean, before we actually experienced it audibly, sensory-wise, or anything. So that was an incredible experience, one of the unique ones. And like I said, my conclusion is that we were both accessing the future in the now moment, which is something the Sasquatch can do. And we have the abilities, all the abilities that they have, and we're waking up to them. So this was a very clear lesson from them about this. And there's no other way to look at it. We knew that something was falling on us, or perceived something was falling on us, before it actually happened. And that scream was dramatic, or that screech. It was really dramatic, loud, and different, for sure. So thank you for letting me share this story. And I'll have a lot more. I'm going to look over some of my experiences. And I'm going to try to focus on some of the ones I haven't talked about already. There's so many that, that I've just kind of forgotten about or haven't focused on for a while. So I'm going to try to dig some of them up too, because they're spectacular as well. And yeah, time. It is not linear for the Sasquatch people. And like I said, for Randy Brisson and I that day, this was a beautiful, classic, undeniable example of that. And like I've said, when I talk about time or zapping or mind speak or any of these things, these are not one-offs. These thoughts, these deductions, these knowings have come from countless intense educational examples given to me by the Sasquatch people.